Did you ever see or hear a woodpecker pecking away at a tree? Maybe you got annoyed by the constant drumming of a woodpecker beak hammering away on a Sunday morning. If so, you might have wondered why on earth nature designed them this way. Why are they hammering away at solid wood? And why don't they get headaches or even worse, concussions? We're going to find out. First, let's talk about why they're pecking anyway. The most common reason is pure survival, of course. The woodpecker is looking to find something to eat. He keeps hammering in the hopes to find larvae, tree sap, insects, or whatever he can get his beak on. Another reason is nest building. The woodpecker hollows out a tree big enough to build a nest to lay eggs in. Since the woodpecker is quite unique in that regard, it is no wonder that another reason for the constant and often very loud pecking is to attract a potential companion to fill the aforementioned nest with. Loud pecking can be heard over a long distance, making it easy for potential breeding partners to locate them. So now that we know why, we can talk about how. Over the years, there has been several theories as to how a woodpecker is able to ram his head against solid wood with an approximate speed of 20 kilometers per hour, or around 13 miles per hour for you Americans, which doesn't seem that much at first glance, but just imagine you would be running at full speed, head first into a tree, and that over and over again, in fact approximately 30 times per second. That doesn't sound fun to me. Now, one of the first theories that came along, which attracted me to making this video in the first place, is the tongue theory. You see, woodpeckers have surprisingly long tongues. These long tongues help the bird to go deep inside the tree bark to find food. In fact, the tongue of a common woodpecker is a third of its body length. If an average height human had a tongue like this, it would be around 60 centimeters, or 2 feet. You can imagine that it would be quite difficult to store a giant tongue like this. The woodpecker is yet again unique in that regard, because his tongue wraps around the skull, which leads to the theory that the tongue might help to absorb some of the impact force. The second, and probably most popular theory, is that the skull of a woodpecker is designed to be shock absorbent. The theory goes that between beak and brain there is a zone of spongy, porous bone absorbing the impact from the beak before all the force can reach the brain. This theory became so popular, in fact, that scientists even started working on making shock-absorbent materials and helmets inspired by the woodpecker. But it's in fact not true. The woodpecker would lose too much kinetic energy to really penetrate a tree if he had built-in shock absorption. In fact, a group of researchers conducted experiments measuring the movement of the bird's skull with high-speed cameras, finding that no deceleration of speed took place, meaning there was no way for shock absorption to occur. So, how does a woodpecker do it then? How can this bird hit its head violently against solid wood over and over again? Well, the leading theory at the moment is that it has to do with the mass and orientation of the brain in relation to the skull size. You see, a concussion occurs when the brain slams into the inner wall of the skull. Since our human brains are fairly large, that happens quite easily. The woodpecker, on the other hand, has a rather small brain. Furthermore, the pecking motion is quite short, meaning the impact on the skull is rather short, making it almost impossible for the woodpecker brain to reach the skull's inner walls. Either way, I hope the next time you hear that drumming sound sounding through the woods, you can think of this little bird in a more positive way, recognizing how unique it really is.